all for being here. First, I want to let you all know that this task force meets every other month on the last Wednesday of each month at 3 p.m. And we usually meet at the Coleman Young building in the City Council Committee of the Whole room. Our next meeting will be held in January, the last Wednesday of that month, again at 3 p.m. So if you're interested, again, this is every other meeting, every other month we meet, and we're looking forward to seeing you all come out. So we're going to just start off with a prayer. Does anyone here like to lead us in a opening prayer this afternoon? No? Okay, I will, if you can bow your heads. Dear Heavenly and Gracious Father, we first just come to you to pause and say thank you. We thank you for the opportunity for us to gather here today. We ask for your presence and give us guidance and wisdom to continue to help and protect and serve your people. We ask this in your name, amen. All right, I'm going to move past our summary of previous meetings. My assistant usually sends those out via email, so if you're curious as to what we discussed in previous meetings, just check your email and those notes were sent out. We're going to move to Ms. Megan Takashima, who's going to update us from the administrative side, what is going on with the issue of homelessness in the city of Detroit.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sheffield. Can you guys hear me? Okay. No? Is it off? Yeah. Can you hear me now? Closer. Really close, huh? Yeah, sure.
Before we have Megan start, I want us to do introductions. And for the purposes of recording, if you can pass the microphone around so that those who are viewing can also know who's here. So we're going to start with my far left here.
I'm Phyllis Judkins from the North End. I've organized North End Neighborhood Patrol.
Amy Brown from the NOAA Project.
Luke Brown, Southwest Solutions, PATH Homeless Outreach.
Matt Bender, also from the NOAA Project.
Sergeant Dennis Perkins, Office of the Chief.
Commander Todd Bettison, Detroit Police Department, work out of Chief James E. Craig's office.
Barry Brown, landlord.
Berlin Brown, landlord.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Pappas. I'm with Pappas Consulting Group.
My name is Cheryl Livingston, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello, my name is Roland Tyndall. I just recently became unhomeless thanks to Southwest Housing Solutions.
I'm Ari Ruttenberg. I'm with Councilmember Sheffield's office.
Megan Takashima with the Department of Housing and Revitalization at the City of Detroit.
Celia Thomas, Matrix Human Services.
Sharon Johnson, COTS.
Catherine Distrath, Department of Health and Human Services.
Joe Brewer, St. Joseph Food Pantry.
Michael Apple, I'm a consultant. I've worked with some groups on homelessness and supportive housing.
Melissa Lubbers with HAND.
Good afternoon, Tia Cobb, Director of Homeless Recovery Services, NSO.
Good afternoon, Joe Tandy with KMG Prestige.
Hello, Jacqueline Wilson, First Lady of Wayne State University.
Good afternoon, my name is Angele Bradarden. I'm with Volunteers of America Supportive Services for Veteran Families.
Good afternoon, Leslie Andrews, Director of Community Relations and Corporate Philanthropy, Rock Ventures, Quicken Loans family of companies.
Patricia Calabro, DTE Energy, Corporate Security.
Rodney Cole, Corporate Government Affairs, DTE Energy.
Michelle Bohm, DTE Energy Regional Relations.
Pat Walshan, Director of Homeless Programming at the VA Medical Center in Detroit.
Ashley Walker, student.
Latrice Watkins, DAC Social Concerns.
Joanne Green, DAC Chair of the Housing Committee.
Bruce Simpson, City Ombudsman.
Good afternoon, Beverly Ebersold, Director of National Initiatives for the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness.
Good afternoon, Mark Everett with the Rock Ventures and Quicken Loans security team.
Good afternoon, Antoinette Gully, Gauss House for Second Chances.
I'm David Carroll with Quicken Loans.
Danny Fenster, mostly just a concerned resident, but also work part-time at the Mariners Inn shelter.
Is that everyone?
Okay, sure. Okay, let's try this again. So as I said, my name is Megan Takashima. I work in the Housing and Revitalization Department, and my focus is issues of homelessness. So I'm helping to oversee the $5 million that the city invests in homelessness and to think about how we can be more strategic in our use of dollars. So we're doing a number of things over the course of the next several months that we thought might be of interest to share. One of the things is that we're doing a training series for some of our providers. Tomorrow will be the start of that training series with a training for all of our shelter providers with a focus on improving our shelter response to homelessness and thinking about how we can be more responsive to the people in need who are presenting at the doors of our shelter and work better as a system. In addition, the city is doing a couple things. First off, trying to focus on a goal of reducing our point-in-time count by 400. And one of the key pieces of that goal has been looking at our veterans who are homeless. As we know, there's a federal goal to end veteran homelessness by the end of 2015. And we've made significant progress in Detroit through the use of something that we call a by-name list, which is a named list of every veteran who's homeless in the city of Detroit. As of last week, that list had about 290 people on it, and so we're working feverishly to try and help obtain housing for those individuals and households with a veteran head of household. In the hopes that that will reduce our point-in-time count. We're also focused on a couple other things about thinking about how we can divert individuals and families from shelter so that they don't enter shelter to begin with, and also grappling with the question of how do we address the issues of unsheltered homeless individuals in the downtown Detroit area. And so there's been a couple convenings to discuss how we move forward with that, and I'm excited that we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. So those are the main updates from the city. We will be moving forward with that training series to look at other sectors of our system and how we can improve the performance for other programs that we fund, including outreach, rapid rehousing, and homelessness prevention.
Any questions for Megan? No? Okay, so everyone loosen up a little bit in here. So as Megan touched on, today we are here really just to discuss the homeless public interactions in downtown Detroit. And I'm glad we have business owners here. We have DPD is here and some service providers as well. As we begin to revitalize Detroit, we're going to see an increase, of course, of repopulation coming into downtown Detroit. And I've had several calls from business owners and just people in general who want to know how to treat the homeless population in a respectful and sensitive way. And so I want to start that discussion today and kind of just open up the question and concerns that you all may have, suggestions. What are you all seeing? How are people being treated? I want to turn it on. I actually want to start with DPD and really how you all are directing or have been directed to address the homeless population in the greater downtown Detroit area. And then we can just kick the conversation off from there.
Hi, I'm Captain Petty, in charge of downtown. Pretty much, we probably have the largest contingency downtown of homeless. And as Councilwoman said, with the revitalization, you're starting to, as we're rebuilding, we're pushing them, instead of pushing them away, we're pushing them back in to the city. So my officers have had challenges with trying to get them help, trying to get them to working with the hospitals, getting them to receiving a hospital and some of the other shelters. Some of the problems we're running in with some of them are they're either not medicated or for reasons they're not allowed to get back into some shelters because they've been placed out. So that becomes a challenge for us because we're steadily chasing, so we need to have a system in place that I would like to see a system in place that we could reference it and know where we've been and where we don't have to go again, because a lot of times I have different officers every day, every shift, and we're just chasing our tails, taking them over here and finding out, oh, they won't take them. And it's just a short fix for us, it's like a Band-Aid. So in saying that, we do need something that's long-term, and I'm open to suggestions.
Does DPD currently have dedicated personnel just to assist with the homeless population within your DPD staff?
No.
So no one has been just particularly trained just to assist with the homeless population?
No, we've had officers trained, but just a person dedicated, like if you were to say that's their sole job, the answer is no. But do we have officers that have been trained specifically, the extra training to work with the homeless population? Yes, we do. And those officers are primarily concentrated in the downtown business area, in the 1st precinct that works for Captain Petty. And one of the things, you know, I'm over the neighborhood police officers as well, and from hearing from some of the officers' perspectives as to what would be useful for us, if we had like a centralized number where we could call and get the resources, and if that number was 24/7, so that we would be able to find shelter for individuals. You know, when we have to call number after number, that becomes problematic, and you know, it ties up a lot of time. Yeah, so where a person would actually answer and it's not automated. So that would be truly of assistance for our officers out there. And I will say for the record that being homeless is not a crime. The City of Detroit Police Department, we understand the sensitivity of it. So.
No, the floor is open for anyone to chime in, to talk, bring up situations.
I'm just, you know, as they speak about having a place to take the client or the person to, I would like to suggest or consider a safe house. And the reason why I say a safe house, because it's not institutionalized. You're not taking them to an institutional kind of a place, whereas you're taking them to that safe house. They can get bathe, eat, and you have your caseworkers on call that can handle their situations. That way they can go to a safe house, eat, clean, and then you can assess what actually they need. That's only a suggestion to consider.
Go ahead.
Just wondering if you could speak a little bit about exactly what kind of training officers, primarily in the downtown area, receive in terms of sensitivity training, in terms of interacting with the homeless population?
I know they receive training from CAPA, and they work very closely with CAPA and actually worked in conjunction going out as teamed up. So officer CAPA members to be able to address some of the sensitivity needs and address the resource needs of the homeless population. Captain Petty, do you have anything additional to add? Yeah, CAPA has been a true asset. Our biggest issue with DPD, I don't know what the exact acronym stands for. Maybe somebody here can help. And they work very closely with NSO as well.
So I guess I'm curious, what could the homelessness system do to assist you? And I think the other thing that I've heard is that a lot of people who are homeless who you suggest to take to shelters refuse the shelter placement. Is that a common occurrence? And then how do you deal with it from there?
So as far as being able to assist us, like one suggestion that was put out on the floor is a resource house or a safe house. If that does exist right now, a safe house, we would need to know the number, the times, and when we could actually take them there, so that when we call, we don't have our officers actually drive to a location only to find out that there are no beds. So that's one situation, so that before we even move someone, you know, we know that before we make that trip that it is space available. That would assist. And oftentimes it's very difficult to find placement for someone that's homeless. So if the officers can't find placement, then what do? And the person hasn't committed a crime, so you have a person that's just still on the streets. So that becomes very difficult. And then the other piece is if they haven't broken a crime, if they haven't committed a crime or did anything like that, and they refuse to go, then there's not a lot you can do because we can't just take folks into custody off the streets. So it becomes very, very frustrating for the officers out there who are dealing with it, because you're worried about the individuals, especially in inclement weather. You're worried about their safety. And I'm preaching to the choir. Everybody here knows those various concerns. But as far as the solution, we're definitely looking for the resources.
Yeah, there used to be a pamphlet that listed all the different organizations around Detroit that could help you with certain situations. I happen to have one of those pamphlets, but unfortunately it's outdated. Probably 90% of the phone numbers that are on it are non-existent. And I think we could use something like that, like the police officer said over there. He's against a brick wall. You don't know where to send him. Nobody does. Thank you.
Hi. So I just wanted to share that. I mean, as you're thinking about this, it's great to have the resources that an officer can call, but what a lot of communities across the country have done is really engage their police departments in a systematic way of coordinated outreach. It looks different in different places. In some communities, there's actually a pair of, they call them hot teams sometimes, where it's officers that are working with street outreach folks in the homeless system literally as a team going out together. In other communities, there's that direct access to those outreach teams so that you guys aren't necessarily having to worrying about the placing. Colorado Springs is a great example where they have a very coordinated outreach team. Philadelphia, Memphis, I would be happy to share some of those examples offline. There are some best practices around engagement with police officers and outreach, and I think that having a system and what that looks like, I remember it's been some years, but there were a few dedicated officers in the downtown areas that worked closely with the PATH teams, and they were like kind of one-on-one, and I think that went away. It was not, for lack of a better word, institutionalized as part of a system response to ending homelessness. It was more based on, I think, personalities of the PATH member and those officers. So there definitely are some best practice examples that can be pointed to that might be helpful.
Yeah, and I would just chime right back in and say that would be very helpful for the officer that's working the beat. When we get the call or you make an observation, the next thing is what's next, and then to be able to have someone that we can call to help bridge that gap, a street outworker that will come with us to help be able to get that individual into placement. It would be awesome to have that type of partnership where we're working hand in hand.
Yeah, I think it would require some intense planning with the outreach staff and a couple of key leads from the police department in the city so that everybody would be on the same page, but you could systemize the response versus it being, you could be more proactive than reactive.
Hi, I was just going to say as well that maybe we can have some members from the task force that can also maybe produce a list to give to the hospitals and certain things that we know that are 24 hours with that resource list, so that maybe you don't have to call all over the place, but you're just calling the hospital and they have that listing sitting there waiting for them to assist with shelters that are 24 hours, and that'll kind of cut down, and it's something that could be a little more immediate than putting together so many larger things.
With our task force here to address homelessness, I think that that's something that we should do. to have that one number, to have a team, so that when that phone call comes in to 911 or whoever is calling, or the officers or anybody observe somebody that's homeless, that when we respond, the officer doesn't have to make a lot of phone calls, maybe one or two at the most, and that we get somebody there to be able to help get the individual placement. And then further, what do we do when the individual doesn't want to leave? The mental health issues come into play.
Go ahead. Right. But I think Megan was saying the CAM closes at 5 p.m. It's not a 24-hour. Can you pass the mic to her? Right. So the 211 number, is that what you guys are referring to? Is that correct? Or it's the actual CAM number that you call for? Can someone say that number? And the issue is that it's not 24 hours.
That is the big issue, is that it is not funded to be 24 hours. But there is a one access number that everyone is supposed to call that is supposed to get you immediate openings of where the beds are. And it's 305-0311. And it's called the CAM, the Coordinated Assessment Model. And it's a one-stop shop. And hopefully, it will close that gap of closing. It stops at 5 o'clock right now. And it doesn't operate on the weekends.
So one simple solution we've used in the youth world around homelessness and having 24-hour access is, in my shelter, my staff who are awake and at work 24 hours a day, they answer the phone. It's not a hard job to spend a little bit more money in funding to allow for 24-hour shelters, to have people assigned. They're already in the building doing the work that they do 24 hours a day. We answer the phone 24 hours a day at our shelter. If by chance staff are in the backyard and the phone rings at 9 o'clock at night, we have the voicemail, but they're coming back into the building by 9:30 at night. And so we're answering the phones in the shelter 24 hours a day. But that's just youth.
Can you name your organization again, ma'am?
Matrix Human Services.
And your number?
313-873-0678, but that is just youth. We have the Youth Emergency Shelter. Young people 12 to under 18 at intake can have access to a safe, clean shelter immediately. Of course, we only have a limited amount of beds too. Young people, men or women, gay, straight, transgender, anything you wish, any religion, can have access to the shelter if they are between the ages of 12 to under 18 at intake. So they could turn 18 tomorrow. If they come tonight, we'll let them in. The number is 313-873-0678.
It was two hands, Tia, Miss Tia.
Hi, I'm with NSO, the Tamani Center. We're a 24-hour service. We take in at least 130 plus a night, especially during the winter nights when the elements are bad outside. We do close our doors at 10, but if we get a phone call, we open them and let anyone in who's coming in and needs to come in. We don't turn anyone away, so you can come in intoxicated. We will not turn you away. If you come into our service the next day, we will do an intake with you, work with you. We provide mental health services. We provide some medical services. We have someone on site that can do actual medical services the next day and during the day hours while you're there. But our number is 313-882-3100. So when the warming centers are open, we take the overflow also from the warming centers. We don't close, we're 24 hours, and we fill up pretty quickly, but we will take the overload. We're not a shelter, we don't have beds, it's all chairs. So when you come in, you have to sit in a chair, but at least it gets you out of the elements and have some place for you to stay for the night, or as long as you want to stay until we can help you find housing, because we provide that service as well.
Hello. One of my main concerns is the amount of shelters that are available. I run into homeless students on campus, and I got an email late last night of a student that needed a place to go, and I had no resources. We're at full capacity at the university, so where are the shelters?
Service providers want to answer? Anybody want to answer that has a shelter here, an NSO and Detroit Rescue Mission and COTS? COTS? Yes, sir. Is that noise?
I mean, I think the reality is that there are not enough shelters, and we call the CAM line every day, and sometimes we get lucky and get a space for somebody, but more often than not, we don't. And so I think the reality is that for a lot of people, the outside is their only option, and we've said that homelessness is not a crime, correct? And so I think for me, what in talking with a lot of our clients is, if homelessness is not a crime, then and there are no shelter beds that are available, where can people sleep? And we've had a number of conversations and issues with some of the downtown business owners and our neighborhood police officer of individuals who are sleeping outside of our building on the sidewalk, but right in front of our building overnight, being told that they cannot be there and that they will be arrested if they continue to sleep there. And so now in our parking lot, since we're just open during the day, in our parking lot overnight. But this is something that has happened in other places more than just the kind of group of individuals right outside. And so my question is, if there are no shelter beds, or there are not enough shelter beds, and homelessness is not a crime, then where are people expected to go? And is sleeping on the sidewalk then a crime, which then, in my mind, criminalizes homelessness itself?
As far as the sidewalk is concerned, you can't impede the sidewalk, pedestrian traffic or vehicular traffic. So they can get a civil infraction for that, but that would be for anyone, whether you're homeless or anybody else, if you block the sidewalk. So as far as solutions, I think what this task force can help with is, first of all, because we all in this room don't know where the resources are, if we had one centralized location where we could go be a website, or where everybody has smartphones nowadays, to be able to see something put together with the smart IT folks that would show the listing of all the beds available at any one time, a telephone number that we would be able to call, and then just have a landscape of the times of whether the shelters are accepting or closed. That would tremendously help us out from a police perspective. And then also knowing how many beds are available out there. How many beds do we have available for homelessness, in the city of Detroit compared to our homeless population that we're aware of? I think that's a starting point that would assist tremendously.
Yeah. I think we ought to quit looking at the homeless population as an eyesore, and I suggest that the city should donate a hotel downtown for the homeless and build a park downtown for the homeless.
One thing I wanted to say is that by the end of this month, the warming centers that are seasonal will open, and so there will be another option, because obviously there are more people seeking shelter during this time of year. And I'm happy if I can get information from one of the officers to share when those warming centers open and give you the information, so you have that as another option for people.
I saw a hand.
Yeah. Question, and it goes back to the fact that the CAM is not 24 hours. Is the city looking at the possibility of being able to fund that for a 24-hour time frame, which would alleviate individuals not being able to have access during that after hours?
I don't want to get into a lot of details, and I can't guarantee it's going to be 24 hours, but we did ask them to price out what it would cost to extend the hours, and we'll be considering that as part of the ESG funding process, which we'll be making awards on in the coming month or so.
The organization we work with, we're trying to open up a warming center. What's the process? We don't know the process of how to do that. So how do we do that? And before you can, I hope you won't be taking the homeless people out of Detroit and dropping them off because they're downtown in the way. Because y'all did that last year, and we had to get together and go downtown about that. Because you say it's not a crime. So people shouldn't be taken from Detroit out to another town and told to get out of the police car. Not their fault, they're homeless.
It's never come to my attention that a Detroit police officer has done that. I've never heard of that. So I can't agree with that statement right there, but our policy is not to do that at all. We do not treat being homeless as a crime. And if you remember the park, Lafayette Park, we were very humane. It was a lot of folks out there. I went out there. I know Councilperson Sheffield was out there. We worked hand in hand with the city council to make sure that we were able to get resources to the homeless population there and to be able to help get housing for them as well. We did the best that we could, but we didn't treat anybody inhumanely, and we allowed folks to be there. Our biggest concern was when the weather was coming and it was very, very cold out there. And there was some other behavior that was going on at the park that wasn't healthy for anybody.
Okay, and so I just want to say I think it's been clear, first of all, that you all do need some assistance in coming up with some type of outreach or coordinated effort to assist you all with assisting the homeless. And so we continue to work on it. I want to just really quick turn it over to some of the business owners that are here. I know we have Quicken Loans representative. I see someone here from DTE. And I would like for them, if possibly, to share some of the issues that you all experience with the homeless population, maybe outside of your establishments, or what process are you using when you're engaging with the homeless community?
Oh, sure. Patricia from DTE Energy. We work down at the downtown campus, right on Bagley and 3rd. And what we're seeing is an influx coming from the area that Olympia is doing their development. So we're seeing a lot of the homeless people trying to seek shelter as it gets colder, except for this week where it's abnormally warm, of course. So we are so thankful to Councilwoman Sheffield and this task force to bringing this to the public and to the business owners so we can talk and we could come to some resolutions and some answers. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I had two questions. One of which, you mentioned training for the shelter providers. And I know some of the homeless people that we've come into contact with, they're fearful to go to some of the shelters. So that's one of the big issues that we're coming across. The other question I had is, what are we doing to be proactive? And someone over here, had brought that up. All of this is reactionary, and I think it's a good step. But what are we doing to help these folks who are truly in need, the mentally ill, the people who are down and out, who don't have jobs, and other things to keep them off the street? So I don't know if there's some conversation brewing about that.
So I don't know, did you want to address any of that, Megan?
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, too many questions at once.
As far as the people not wanting to go into shelters,
yeah. So I think with shelter, and really part of the content of what we're going to talk about tomorrow is striking the balance between having a low barrier shelter and a safe shelter. So not turning people away for things that should not require someone to be turned away for. So if you don't have an ID, that's not a reason to turn someone away from a shelter. We understand they're homeless and they're in hard circumstances, but also to think about how to maintain, I guess the best word is order in a shelter so that the people who are there feel safe. So, you know, the training tomorrow is a day long. It's for all the providers. And then we'll actually be doing site visits with each of the shelters to think about, you know, their strengths, the things that they're doing well, and some recommendations on how to improve their programming. But yeah, I think one of the things that we have to deal with is the fact that some people don't want to go to shelter, and sometimes that's because we may not have options for them. But other times we have to be realistic about, if someone has a severe and persistent mental illness, shelter may not be a good setting for them. It may be really hard for them to go there. So one of the areas of focus and what we did with the encampment in Lafayette Park was to think about what a real solution for these folks is. Because a shelter is a place to stay overnight. It's not a solution to homelessness. So we were able to house all of the people who were in the Lafayette encampment through vouchers with services attached to help keep them housed. So I think really if we're going to do something in the downtown business district, we recognize that our focus needs to be not getting people off the streets. It needs to be getting people to housing so we have a long-term solution for them. And the way to do that is really to target the vouchers that we have available, because we do have a sort of continuing supply of vouchers available. It's not like they're infinite, but we do have vouchers. Thinking about who are the right fit to put in these vouchers, which are long-term affordability and services to keep someone housed. And so I think this is part of the larger community conversation about, it's not only how do we get homeless people off the streets, but how do we keep them off the streets?
Back to DTE, I wanted just to ask you in general, what current process are you all utilizing as it relates to the homeless population? Do you have a dedicated person? Is it the NSO? Is it DRM? I mean, who are you calling when you are in need of services to come in for outreach outside of your facility, or if you come in interaction with the homeless community? What process are you currently using?
Currently, we don't have the 211 on the go that we used to rely on. Many, many years ago, we would be able to use them as a resource, and they would respond quite quickly and efficiently and bring the people to the proper locations. Right now, we're relying either on DPD or Wayne State coming down, and if it's a trespass situation, working with them, having a conversation, and escorting them off the property. But we are finding them on the streets, on the sidewalks. So similar situation as the officers were talking about before. They just don't have a place to go.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Everett with the Quicken Loans Rock Venture Security Team, and I just want to talk about some of the things that we've done to assist. As you know, we have quite a few buildings downtown, so we do encounter some of the homeless folks sleeping in some of our buildings, our garages, and around our properties and things like that. And what we've done is it's twofold. One, we've kind of embraced and understand the concern. It's obviously not a crime. So we actually know a lot of the folks by name. And have been able to assist them when needed. I pulled up a couple of the shelters and locations that we send our officers, the homeless to when needed. The other thing that comes up is if they don't want to go and they feel comfortable where they are. I know that's kind of tough to state, but the Coalition for a Temporary Shelter on Peterborough, Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries, Detroit Rescue Mission on 3rd Street, Mariners Inn, Covenant House, Michigan. Anytime we encounter them, we'll make the phone calls to those locations. And we talked about the warming shelters as well. So we've reached out and actually have tried to work on some pickup locations, if you want to call them, within our footprint where people can come, or the shelters, warming centers can come transport the homeless folks back to their warming shelters. So that's some of the things that we've done. Obviously, we have some of our DPD and secondary officers who've assisted us. If it becomes aggressive in nature when we're trying to assist, or if the homeless folks are with the amount of team members and people in the downtown area have become, when you're asking for money or something like that, when they become a little aggressive. But even in that aspect, we've never gotten to the point where we're arresting or detaining or anything like that. We still try to assist in finding local shelters. The other thing that I heard recently, I was talking about this with some of my team this morning, is I don't know if this is the right term for it, but homeless meters, right, where you can put these out. Supposedly they're in Greektown. I personally have not seen them. Obviously, Campus Martius is a very visible and attractive location for a lot of people. There's a lot of parks, Capitol Park, Halleck Square Park. So maybe we just want to institute more of these meters, make them more visible, make it more well known that this is an opportunity for people to donate, assist, to help support the hours that we have for the, after 5 o'clock or what have you. Or how does that money even get to the homeless people? Because I'm not, again, I don't have a whole lot of information on that.
Thank you for bringing that up. So Detroit Donates, and I talked about this in the task force meeting before. That is a program that was spearheaded by myself, DDP, and also Greektown Preservation Society. And the meters will actually be rolled out the second week of December. And so we're going to start off with initially 5 meters in the greater downtown Detroit area. And so $10,000 is going to be initially set aside to fund that program. And a good idea maybe is to fund the CAM line for 24 hours access. We're not sure exactly what we wanted to fund, but we are calling for sponsorships. DTE, if you guys want to jump on board, or whoever wants to jump on board, who wants to donate to this particular fund that can assist with helping the homeless individuals in the greater downtown Detroit area. And so we are looking for more sponsorships for that program, and I'll make sure I roll that out and give you guys more information when it comes forward. Yes, sir. 5, just 5 originally. I'm sorry. They're going to be right by, I think on Monroe Street, right by Greektown area, and then they're going to move it to the greater downtown Detroit area. So we're going to just start off with 5 just to test it as a pilot and see how it actually works and get the feedback from residents and the community in general. And then we'll move it to initially, it's going to be 20 all around. December, the second week of December, they'll be rolled out. Yeah. And we're going to do a campaign media for it as well, too. And so you guys will be seeing that more on the news and things of that sort. There'll be a website where people can go and donate as well, too. You can text to donate and things of that sort. Okay? Yes, Ms. Jeffings.
Thank you. I had a safe house on Westminster where I did my patrolling out of, and I'm in the process of putting together another house for this. But I met with some men this morning just before I got here, and they're putting together 3 other houses because in the North End, when someone is homeless, they call me, and I keep them for a week or whatever and feed them. But the main thing that I found out was that they don't know how to fill out the paperwork to get help and like to be proactive. The gentlemen that I find on the street that have income, I give them a place to stay, a job to do, and give them responsibility. And I think that if we can catch them before they get on the street, because they may have income, but not enough to stay in a $600, $700, $800 apartment. And if we can find places that are inexpensive, where they can still keep their integrity by taking care of themselves, that would eliminate some of the people that are out there that have money but no place and can't afford it. So affordability would be a good thing. And also, when I worked at Westland Medical, the mental guys there, they wouldn't give us their names and numbers and things, so we took their picture and gave them a name. And then when we kept seeing them, we knew where they were. So with all these gadgets that we have, if we don't know their name and they won't give us their name and they won't go to a shelter, we could at least take a picture, say what area we saw them in, and give them a name so that the police will have that to pass on, so that they'll say, okay, this is Jack in black, and he's always on Monroe. So at least we can designate where they are and then reach out to help them, because I know there's a lot of mental people out here, because I was one of the people that was involved when they closed the sanitarium out there in Inkster. They actually, anyone that didn't come and pick up family, they bust them downtown and put them off the bus. Now, that is one of the reasons why we have this problem, because all of the mentally imbalanced people that was there was just brought right downtown and put out on Jefferson. And that was years ago. But we haven't been able to get them back together, because the reason why they're afraid, because in these foster homes they walk away from because of the abuse that isn't being reported, and then they don't want to go back to those different situations. So we have to approach each one of them with love and kindness and understanding, because I'm always filled. And there are families out here, not just single people, but there are families out here that just need a week or two in a location to get paperwork and things together. So in the North End, we are taking care of the homeless that is reported to us in our area. and it is working well, and the churches are working with us, and they help also. If someone comes in and doesn't have a place to stay, we give them clothes and food and housing and try to help them with paperwork. So anything is a start, and I think that this is a wonderful thing we're doing, and we just need to have it in segments on what kind of help they need, put it in some kind of order, and direct that to who can supply it, okay?
Great, thank you, Ms. Judkins. I think you had your head up, ma'am.
I had a question for the police officers. Thank you very much for all you do every day. I'm wondering, since I work with veterans, are you transporting any folks that are veterans to our outreach center that's open 7 days a week, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m.? I know that we've done some. Okay. I mean, because we're there and we can do assessments. We've got showers, quick, ready-to-heat meals. We've got a laundry facility, computer room. We can do a quick assessment. If they're eligible for VA healthcare benefits, we've got all kinds of options for placement. If they're not, we can then work and connect them with other resources in the community for shelter and then moving them into permanent housing. So before I leave, I'll be sure I get you that information just to be sure you have that. This is just for veterans, yes. It's through the VA Medical Center, but it's our outreach center at 301 Paquette. It's the corner of Paquette and Brush Street. And the phone number there is 313-576-1580. Thank you.
All right, is there any other questions or comments? So what I want to do as it relates to this issue, oh, you had one? Go ahead, go right ahead.
Yeah, I do. I've been doing homeless outreach for 7 years in Detroit, and I actually started with 211 on the Go as a part of that team. And I think one of the biggest barriers that I see is a lack of presence in the community from outreach teams. A lot of these people have many barriers with mental health, substance abuse, and I don't know if anybody's tried to get a state ID in Michigan, but it's one of the hardest things you can do, let alone having someone who's schizophrenia, unmedicated, or whatever, trying to navigate that process is nearly impossible. So I think having more presence in the community from an outreach perspective would be great to help them navigate through that process, to link them to permanent supportive housing, because many of these individuals aren't in shelters, they're sleeping on the streets. You know, you see them all the time. And who's out there really engaging them and trying to help them? There's not much of a presence. So focusing on that may be helpful in the future.
Thank you. Great points. I just want to mention that the city of Detroit currently is working on an ordinance that would allow for municipal IDs. And so we're working on that. We'll probably have it approved by the beginning of next year. And that will help with some of those issues. And then I know Detroit Action Commonwealth, if you want to raise your hand, they assist every other Friday at the Capuchin. On Connors, they assist individuals with identification as well, too.
Before the city ID, making sure that it's the Secretary of State recognizes
Would allow it as well, too.
in that third box or whatever. That would be incredible. Otherwise, because in Washtenaw County, they don't recognize it, and so they don't accept it as photo ID. Then it becomes pointless for them.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was gonna also say that Crossroads on the Boulevard and West Grand Boulevard, they're doing identifications and birth certificates as well. And what they do is they issue that amount to the individual to take down to the Secretary of State and or to the birth certificate place to do it for themselves.
Okay. Was there any other? Yes, go ahead.
Just one question on the IDs, on the municipal IDs. Has it been determined what an individual will need to get a municipal ID?
He'll break them down.
Well, okay, so we're still working on it. There are certain, we're still working on some of the details. A lot of the cities that we've looked into use like a point system. So you essentially need proof of identification and proof of residency. We're trying to make sure that it's as least restrictive as possible. And so, you know, for residency, it's not too hard. Essentially, just a letter from pretty much any service provider here in Detroit would suffice as a proof of residency. And then for identification, we're also going to probably allow some sort of affidavit or letter from some of the service providers, especially for the people who are more well-known, to these service providers or outreach teams, that would probably cover a certain amount of points. And so like if someone had a birth certificate card, that would cover probably the requisite amount of points. But you know, if you don't have some of the more intensive identification, they have stuff like bills, medical records. So if you have like an intake from a hospital, all of that can help as proof of identification. And so the burden is far less for the municipal ID than it would be for something for, let's say, a state ID.
I also know that one of my coworkers is working on this, and our plan is to do a focus group with homeless service providers to get a sense of what would make this meaningful and to understand some of the challenges that you're experiencing. So we can address those when we launch this.
All right, any other questions or comments? No? Okay, so because this is a huge issue, I know we're not going to be able to tackle it today, and I think that in general the city probably needs to come up with a coordinated effort for the greater downtown Detroit area. And so what I want to do is create a subcommittee to continue to address this issue with DPD along, some business owners and some residents and whoever wants to join in. Are we going to create a list, a sign-in sheet, whoever is available or willing to serve on that subcommittee, and then we can begin to meet on a monthly basis to begin to kind of address and create some type of strategy, whether it be 24 access to CAM, a pamphlet, or whatever outreach team. We can address those in a subcommittee and then bring that forward to the full task force as a whole, okay? So if anyone's interested, please sign in for that. We do have a tour scheduled to tour this actual facility, and Tia, you can just really quick give a brief, like 2-minute introduction of where we are, what this building does, what people are going to see while they're here, just before people go on an actual tour.
Again, good afternoon. This is the Bell Building. We are a 155-unit apartment complex for formerly chronically homeless individuals. We've been here for about 3 years now. We use the Housing First model, which states that we house people as they are from off the streets. And then once they are here in the apartment complex, we begin to provide services, and the services that we provide are case management, therapeutic services, medical services, substance abuse services, and employment services. At this time, we also have a clinic that is housed right here within the Bell Building. We are opening to the neighborhood so that folks can come here and receive medical services as well. We have a dental clinic that comes in once a week, and we have psychiatric services as well. So at this point in time, we have about 150. We have maybe about 5 to 4 units that are vacant that we are looking to fill. We use the coordinated assessment model with the continuum of care to house our consumers, and we are happy to be here and happy to provide the services of those that are here at this time.
Okay, and so are you taking us on the tour, or is someone coming down? Someone's coming.
I have people that are take 1 or 2 groups up, or
Okay.
3 if necessary, and I can do one of the tours as awful.
Okay, so we scheduled.
Also.
Okay, I'm sorry. So we scheduled the actual task force to go from 2 to 3, and then from 3 to 4. Are you right? Is the actual tour? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to end the meeting now. If there are any other questions or comments, we can adjourn and then talk briefly aside. But we will have a tour now from 3 to 4 to tour the actual facility. Thank you all for coming out. Again, the next meeting will be held the last Wednesday of January at the Coleman Young Building. Thank you so much.